I found out my husband had a second wife when the hospital nurse asked me which Mrs. Anderson she should call. You need to understand something about me. I'm not the kind of woman who asks questions. Maybe that was my first mistake. For 22 years, I trusted Daniel with everything. My heart, my future, my mother's inheritance. While other wives checked their husbands' phones or demanded explanations for late nights, I simply believed. Because isn't that what love is supposed to be? Trust without doubt? I worked 2 jobs to support his dreams. The morning shift at Rosie's Diner started at 5 a.m., my feet aching by noon, smelling like coffee and bacon grease. Then I'd rush home, shower, and head to my evening bookkeeping job that lasted until 9 p.m. Sometimes later, Daniel always said his business was struggling, that we just needed to hold on a little longer. You're my rock, Patricia. He'd whisper on the rare nights he was home. I couldn't do this without you. I lived on 4 hours of sleep. I wore the same 3 outfits for years. I couldn't remember the last time I'd bought myself something that wasn't on clearance. But I didn't complain, because I thought we were building something together. A future. A retirement where we could finally breathe. Before we go any further into this, I just want to say, if you feel a connection to these stories, a small click on that like button and subscribe would mean more to me than you know. It lets me know I'm not just speaking into the void, that you're really here with me. All right, let's continue. When my mother passed 3 years ago, she left me $180,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was her entire life savings. Money she'd scraped together working as a seamstress for 40 years. The night after her funeral, Daniel held me while I cried. Your mother would want you to be secure, he said softly. Why don't we invest this in the business? I've got this opportunity, a contract that could change everything for us. We could finally stop struggling. I signed the check the next morning. Daniel told me the business required him to travel, sometimes 2 or 3 nights a week, meeting clients, he'd explain. You know how it is. Gotta wine and dine them to close deals. I'd pack his overnight bag, kiss him goodbye, and spend those nights alone in our small rental house, eating leftover diner food and falling asleep to late-night television. He always came home tired, distant. When I'd try to cuddle, he'd say he was exhausted from driving. When I'd suggest a date night, he'd remind me we needed to save money. Soon, he'd promise. Once this next deal closes, I'm taking you somewhere special. That soon never came. Our anniversary passed without acknowledgement. My birthday came and went with a grocery store card. When I gently mentioned feeling lonely, he sighed heavily, like I was being unreasonable. Patricia, I'm doing all this for us. Can't you see that? I'm out there fighting every day to give us a better life, and you're complaining that I'm not romantic enough? I apologized. I actually apologized for feeling neglected. You see how it works? How slowly you can lose yourself. I'd become so small, so grateful for any scrap of attention, that I'd forgotten I deserved more than scraps. Last Tuesday started like any other day. The alarm at 4:30 a.m., my body protesting as I dragged myself out of bed. Daniel was already gone. Said he had an early meeting 2 hours away. I found myself standing in the shower, water running cold because I'd zoned out, and realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt truly awake, truly alive. The morning shift was brutal. Endless coffee refills, plates of eggs and hash browns, customers who didn't tip. By noon, my vision was starting to blur at the edges. I told myself I just needed to push through. Just get to the evening job. Then I could rest. I was carrying a tray of dirty dishes toward the kitchen when the room started spinning. Sarah, the other waitress, told me later that I just crumpled. One moment I was walking. The next I was on the floor, dishes shattered around me. She said my eyes rolled back and she screamed for someone to call 911. I don't remember the ambulance. Don't remember arriving at the hospital. My first clear memory is lying in a bed with an IV in my arm, fluorescent lights burning my eyes, and a young nurse with kind eyes leaning over me. Mrs. Anderson, You're okay. You fainted from exhaustion and dehydration. We're getting fluids in you now." She patted my hand gently. "Is there someone we should call?" "Your husband?" "Yes," I whispered. "Daniel Anderson. His number is in my phone." She reached for my phone on the side table, then paused. She looked at my chart, then back at me, confusion crossing her face. "I'm sorry," she said slowly. "I need to ask, which Mrs. Anderson should we contact?" The words didn't make sense at first. I actually laughed, a weak, confused sound. "I don't understand. I'm Mrs. Anderson, Patricia Anderson." The nurse's face went pale. I apologize. There must be some confusion in our system. Let me just..." She hurried out of the room, and I could hear urgent whispers in the hallway. My heart started pounding. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. A different nurse came in. Older, more professional. "Mrs. Anderson, I apologize for the confusion. We'll call your husband right away." But I saw it in her eyes. Pity mixed with discomfort. She knew something I didn't. When Daniel arrived an hour later, he looked annoyed rather than concerned. "Patricia, what happened? I was in the middle of an important meeting." "I collapsed at work," I said, studying his face. "Daniel, the nurse asked me something strange. She asked which Mrs. Anderson she should call." I watched him carefully, watched for the tell, and there it was. Just a flicker, a tiny moment where his eyes widened before he forced his expression back to normal. "That's ridiculous," he said too quickly. "Obviously a computer error. Hospitals are always mixing up records." He kissed my forehead, but his lips were cold. "Look, I need to get back to this meeting. It's critical. They're keeping you overnight for observation, right? I'll come get you tomorrow. You're leaving?" My voice cracked. "Daniel, I collapsed. I'm in the hospital." "And you're fine now," he said, already backing toward the door. "The doctor said it's just exhaustion. Rest. I'll see you tomorrow." He was gone before I could respond. I lay there in that hospital bed, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, and let my mind replay the nurse's question over and over. Which Mrs. Anderson should we contact? At 3 a.m., unable to sleep, I did something I'd never done before. I opened Daniel's location on my phone. We'd shared our locations years ago, back when he first started traveling. For safety. I'd never actually checked it. Never had a reason to. The little blue dot showed his location. He wasn't at home. He wasn't at a hotel near any client meeting. He was at a residential address across town, 2247 Maple Grove Lane. And according to the timestamp, he'd been there since 8 p.m., right after leaving the hospital. My hands started shaking as I typed the address into Google. The street view showed a beautiful 2-story house with a manicured lawn, a swing set in the yard, and 2 expensive cars in the driveway. "Who lives there, Daniel? Who do you go home to when you leave me?" I didn't sleep that night. I lay in that hospital bed, IV dripping into my arm, and felt the foundation of my entire life beginning to crack beneath me. The next morning, Daniel picked me up exactly as promised. He was cheerful, asking about my test results, reminding me to take it easy, playing the concerned husband perfectly. I smiled and nodded and let him drive me home to our small rental house. But inside something had shifted. That naive, trusting Patricia who never asked questions, she died on the floor of that diner. And the woman who woke up in that hospital bed, she was ready to find out the truth. I spent 3 days pretending everything was normal, while my world crumbled in slow motion. Daniel kissed me goodbye each morning, briefcase in hand, playing the role of devoted husband. And I played my role too, the recovering wife taking it easy, promising to rest. But the moment his car disappeared around the corner, I became someone else entirely. Someone I didn't recognize. A detective, a spy, a woman hunting for truth in the ruins of her marriage. That first morning, I sat at our kitchen table with my laptop and a cup of coffee that went cold while I stared at those words on the screen. 2247 Maple Grove Lane. I'd already looked at the street view 100 times, memorizing every detail of that house. The white shutters, the flower pots on the porch, the children's toys scattered across the pristine lawn. Children's toys. My hands shook as I typed the address into the property records database. Public information. Anyone could access it. And there it was, loading on my screen like a bomb with a slow-burning fuse. Owner: Daniel Marcus Anderson and Melissa Jean Anderson. Melissa Jean Anderson. I ran to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left. Then I sat on the cold tile floor and let myself cry. Deep, ugly sobs that came from somewhere so deep inside me I didn't know that place existed. He had another wife, another life, another name on a deed, but I didn't stay on that floor. You know why? Because 22 years of exhaustion had suddenly transformed into something else, something sharp and burning. Rage. I wiped my face, steadied my breathing, and went back to that computer. If Daniel had taught me anything during all those years of bookkeeping work, it was how to follow a paper trail. I started with social media. Melissa Jean Anderson. There were several, but I found her within minutes. Her profile wasn't private. Why would it be? She had nothing to hide. She thought she was the only Mrs. Anderson. Her most recent photo showed a beautiful woman, maybe 35, with honey-colored hair and a bright smile. She was standing in front of that house, my husband's other house, wearing a sundress and holding a glass of wine. The caption read, "Finally Friday. Blessed life. Grateful family time." I scrolled through her photos with tears streaming down my face. There were so many. Melissa at a beach resort. Melissa at a fancy restaurant. Melissa with 2 young children. A boy about 7 and a girl maybe 5. Both with Daniel's dark eyes. Children. He had children with her. In one photo from 3 months ago, I could see Daniel's arm around her shoulder. The photo was cropped, but I recognized his watch. The one I'd saved up for months to buy him for our 15th anniversary. I went further back, and further. The photos with Daniel went back 6 years. 6 years of birthdays and holidays and family trips. 6 years of the life I thought we were building together, except he was building it with her. I found their wedding photo from 2019. Melissa in a white dress, Daniel in a tuxedo, both of them beaming on a beach at sunset. The caption, "Best day of my life. Forever starts now with my soulmate." We'd been married for 16 years in 2019. I was working double shifts that year to help with his business expansion. I came home one night that September with my feet, bleeding from standing all day. And he wasn't there. Said he was at a business conference in Miami. He was marrying another woman in Miami. I closed the laptop because I couldn't see through my tears anymore. But I couldn't stop. I needed to know everything. All of it. Every lie. Every detail. Every moment of the life he'd stolen from me. The next morning I did something that terrified me. I got in my 12-year-old Honda with the passenger door that didn't open properly, and I drove to 2247 Maple Grove Lane. I parked 3 houses down, hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. The sun was just coming up, painting everything in soft golden light. It was a beautiful neighborhood, the kind I dreamed about living in someday. Tree-lined streets, big houses with perfect lawns, children's bicycles in driveways. At 7:30 a.m. the garage door opened, and there he was, my husband, wearing the blue shirt I'd ironed for him last week, carrying a travel mug I'd never seen before. He kissed a woman on the doorstep, kissed Melissa, and she laughed at something he said. Then 2 children ran out, backpacks bouncing, and Daniel knelt down to hug them both. I watched him tousle the little boy's hair, watched him kiss the little girl's forehead, watched him load them into a silver Lexus SUV that cost more than I'd earned in 3 years. Then he drove away, heading toward work, and I sat there shaking so violently I thought I might shatter. But I didn't leave. I needed more. I needed to see her, see what he'd chosen over me. Melissa came out 20 minutes later, looking elegant in yoga pants and a fitted jacket. She got into a white BMW, also new, also expensive, and drove away. The house sat empty. I went back the next day, and the day after that. I learned their routine. Daniel arrived every evening around 6 p.m. They ate dinner together. I could see them through the large kitchen window. A family. He helped the children with homework, read them bedtime stories. The lights in the master bedroom went dark around 11 p.m. On Thursday, I followed Daniel all day. He left Melissa's house. I couldn't bring myself to call it his house. At 8 a.m., but he didn't go to any office. He drove to a Starbucks, bought coffee, and sat working on his laptop for 2 hours. Then he went to the gym, had lunch at a nice bistro, drove around for a while, met someone at a golf course. There was no struggling business, no important meetings, no clients to wine and dine. It was all lies. Everything. Every single thing. At 4 p.m., he drove to our street, our sad little rental house with the peeling paint. I'd rushed home minutes before, my heart hammering. When he walked in at 4:30, I was on the couch, pretending to read. "Hey, honey," he said, kissing my cheek. "How was your day?" "You resting like the doctor said." I looked up at this man I'd loved for 22 years, this stranger wearing my husband's face. "It was quiet," I said. "How was work?" "Exhausting." He sighed, loosening his tie. "Back-to-back meetings all day. I'm dead on my feet." He went to shower. I heard the water running and knew with absolute certainty, that he was washing away one life before stepping into another. In 90 minutes, he'd be at that beautiful house, hugging those children, kissing that other wife. While the shower ran, I did something I'd never done before. I went through his briefcase, and there, tucked in a side pocket, I found a folder. Inside were bank statements, but not for any account I recognized. I photographed every page with shaking hands. Joint account. Daniel and Melissa Anderson. Balance, $47, my mother's inheritance. I was looking at my mother's inheritance in an account with another woman's name on it. I kept searching. Found statements for credit cards I didn't know existed. A mortgage payment for 2247 Maple Grove Lane. $3,800 a month. Private school tuition receipts. $2,400 per month per child. Car payments for the Lexus and BMW. Country club membership. Family vacation to Hawaii. Last summer, when Daniel told me he was at a business conference in Denver. I added it up on my phone's calculator, barely breathing. Just the monthly expenses for his other life totaled over $12,000. $12,000 a month, while I wore second-hand clothes and worked myself into a hospital bed. The shower stopped. I quickly photographed everything, put it all back exactly as I found it, and rushed back to the couch. Daniel emerged, smelling like soap and cologne. Cologne I'd never smelled on him before. "I've got to run back to the office," he said. "Don't wait up." "Okay," I whispered. "I love you." The words tasted like poison. "Love you too," he said, already halfway out the door. I waited until I heard his car leave. Then I opened my laptop with hands that had stopped shaking. The shaking had been replaced by something cold and clear, something sharp as glass. I logged into our joint checking account, the one where my paychecks were deposited, the one Daniel had access to for business expenses. For years, I'd never really looked closely. I trusted him. I was too tired to check. But now I really looked, regular withdrawals. Thousands of dollars every month, categorized as business investments. Money that never came back. Money that disappeared into the beautiful house, the luxury cars, the private schools, the life he'd built with someone else. My salary from 2 jobs. My mother's entire life savings. Every penny I'd ever earned or inherited. It had all been poured into a lie. I opened a new document on my laptop and started writing. Every detail, every date, every amount, every photograph. Building a timeline of my husband's double life. One devastating piece of evidence at a time. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. In his email, I'd had his password for years, used it to help with business correspondence. There was a message from 6 months ago. From Melissa to Daniel. Honey, I'm so glad we decided to expand the family. Baby number 3 is going to complete us. The doctor said everything looks perfect. I can't wait to tell the kids they're going to be a big brother and sister again. His response, you make me the happiest man alive. Our family is everything to me. 6 months ago, I'd been sitting at this same table crying because Daniel said we couldn't afford to fix our broken washing machine. I'd been hand-washing our clothes in the bathtub while he was planning baby number 3 with his other wife. I closed the laptop, stood up, walked to our bedroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked old, worn down, faded. I disappeared piece by piece, year by year, while Daniel built a shining new life on the ashes of mine. But here's what I realized in that moment. I wasn't broken, not anymore. I was furious, and fury, I was learning, is so much stronger than heartbreak. I picked up my phone and started searching for divorce attorneys, but as I scrolled through the websites, something stopped me, a thought that grew clearer with every passing second. Melissa didn't know. She was a victim too, living in ignorance, just like I had been, thinking she had a devoted husband, never knowing she was the other woman in a bigamist's twisted game. She deserved to know the truth, and together we might be able to do something Daniel never saw coming. I opened a new social media account, anonymous, untraceable, and I sent Melissa Jean Anderson a simple message. I know this will sound crazy, but I need to tell you something about your husband, Daniel. Your life isn't what you think it is. Mine wasn't either, please. If you have any doubts, any questions about where he goes or what he does, message me back. I promise I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help you see the truth before it's too late. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I sat in the dark of my little rental house, waiting for the other Mrs. Anderson to respond, waiting to see if the woman who'd stolen my life even knew she was a thief, or if she was just another one of Daniel's victims. My phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. The message was from Melissa. Who is this? How do you know my husband? I took a deep breath and typed. Because he's my husband, too. For 3 days, Melissa didn't respond. I stared at my phone constantly, refreshing the message thread, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Maybe she'd told Daniel. Maybe right now he was planning how to spin this, how to make me look crazy, how to disappear before I could expose him. But on the 4th day, at 2:37 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. I need proof. Just those 3 words, but I could feel the fear behind them, the desperate hope that I was lying, that her perfect life was real. I knew that feeling. I'd clung to it myself just days ago. I sent her one photo. Just one. Daniel and me on our wedding day, September 14th, 2003. Young and smiling, my hand in his, both of us looking at the camera like we had forever ahead of us. Then I waited. 15 minutes later, oh my God. Then, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Then, I'm going to be sick. I typed carefully, my hands trembling. I know exactly how you feel. Can we talk? Really talk? Not on here. He checks my messages sometimes. Do you have a number? I gave her a new number. I'd bought a prepaid phone that morning. Something Daniel couldn't trace. Within seconds it rang. Is this real? Her voice was shaking so badly I could barely understand her. Tell me this isn't real. Tell me you're some crazy stalker who found old photos and... I'm not crazy, I said quietly. I'm Patricia Anderson. I've been married to Daniel for 22 years. And I'm so sorry, Melissa. I'm so sorry that you're finding out this way. She made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. 22 years? That's impossible. We've been married for 6 years. We have 2 children. We're trying for a 3rd. He's here every night, every single night. What time does he leave in the morning? Silence. Then quietly. Around 8. And what time does he come home? Around 6. Sometimes 5:30 if it's a slow day at work. I closed my eyes. Melissa, he leaves my house at 7:45 every morning. He comes home to me around 4:30. And he leaves again at 5:45 to come home to you. No. Her voice cracked. No, he's at work. He owns a consulting business. He's always busy with clients, and there is no business. I've followed him, Melissa. He goes to coffee shops. The gym. He plays golf. There are no clients. No meetings. No office. I heard her breathing, rapid and shallow. Then, the Hawaii trip. Last July. He said it was our anniversary trip. He told me he was at a business conference in Denver. Oh, God. She was crying now, deep, gasping sobs. The kids. We have 2 kids. James is 7 and Sophie is 5. They worship him. He's such a good father. How could someone be such a good father and do this? My heart broke for her. For her children. For the innocent lives caught in Daniel's web of lies. Melissa, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. The money, where does it come from? The house, the cars, the private school? From his business. He makes good money. We're comfortable. Has he ever asked you for money? Loans? Access to your accounts? No, I don't work. I stay home with the kids. Daniel handles all the finances. He says I shouldn't worry about money, that it's his job to provide. Of course he did. He was already bleeding me dry. Why would he need to touch her money? Melissa, I have something to show you. Can we meet? Somewhere Daniel would never go? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, there's a park on the north side of town. Riverside Park. He'd never go there. It's too far from everything. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll be there. That night, Daniel came home to our rental house at his usual time. He kissed my cheek, complained about his long day, ate the cheap pasta I'd made, and fell asleep on the couch watching television. I sat across from him, watching this man I'd loved for more than half my life, and felt absolutely nothing. No love, no anger, nothing. He'd become a stranger wearing a familiar face. The next morning, I drove to Riverside Park with a folder full of evidence. Bank statements, photos, timeline, everything I'd compiled over the past week. My hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped days ago. I found Melissa sitting on a bench by the duck pond, wearing oversized sunglasses that couldn't hide her swollen eyes. She looked smaller than in her photos. Fragile. When she saw me approaching, she stood up, and for a moment we just stared at each other. 2 Mrs. Andersons. 2 wives. 2 victims. You look like your pictures, she said quietly. I hoped maybe this was all fake, that you'd show up and be someone else and I could go home and... I know, I said. I'm sorry. We sat down on that bench, 2 strangers connected by one man's betrayal, and I opened the folder. This is the joint checking account Daniel and I share, I said, showing her the statements. See these withdrawals? Every month, thousands of dollars categorized as business investments. Want to know where that money went? She took the paper with shaking hands. Where? Your mortgage. Your car payments. Your life. I pulled out more papers. This is my mother's inheritance. $180,000. She died 3 years ago. Daniel convinced me to invest it in his business. Look at this account. Daniel and Melissa Anderson. That's where my mother's money went. Into an account with your name on it. Melissa's face went white. I didn't know. Patricia, I swear I didn't. I know you didn't. You're a victim too. I pulled out more documents. But Melissa, there's more. I found business records. Daniel has been embezzling from his supposed partners. There are at least 3 men who invested in his consulting business over the years. Money that disappeared. What? She looked up at me, mascara running down her cheeks. How much? Over $400,000. Combined. From 3 different investors who thought they were funding a legitimate business. Melissa stood up abruptly, pacing, hands in her hair. This can't be happening. This can't be real. I need to go home. I need to think. Melissa, wait. I stood too. If you confront him now, he'll run. He'll disappear, and we'll never see justice. He'll take whatever he can carry, and leave us both with nothing but debt and legal problems. Then what do we do? She turned to me, desperate. What the hell do we do, Patricia? We work together, I said. We gather every piece of evidence we can find. We document everything, and then we don't just confront him. We destroy the life he built on our backs. She stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Over the next week, Melissa and I became something I never expected. Partners, allies, friends even. Bonded by betrayal and a shared hunger for justice. We met secretly every few days, always at different locations. Coffee shops on the far side of town, parks where Daniel never went. Once in the back corner of a library, hunched over laptops like college students studying for exams. Melissa had access to things I didn't. The joint accounts, the credit card statements from their shared cards, the mortgage documents. She photographed everything when Daniel was out playing with the kids, her hands shaking but her resolve growing stronger each day. Look at this, she said one afternoon, showing me her phone. Last month's credit card statement. $6,800 at a jewelry store. I never got any jewelry. Neither did I said. Check the date. Her eyes widened. February 14th, Valentine's Day. She scrolled through her photos. I made him a nice dinner at home. He said money was tight, that we should keep it simple this year. She looked at me, something hard forming in her eyes. Where were you on Valentine's Day? Working a double shift. He texted me that he was stuck in meetings all day. Then who got the jewelry? Melissa asked. We both realized it at the same time. We weren't the only two. There might be another one, I whispered. Another wife. Another life. Melissa's face went pale. How many lives is he living? We spent 2 days investigating, following paper trails and credit card receipts. But we found nothing. No third wife. No third family. Just jewelry that had been returned for cash 3 days after Valentine's Day. He's funding his lifestyle by cycling money, Melissa said. She'd been a finance major before she became a stay-at-home mom, and her mind worked quickly through the numbers. He takes from you, gives to me, takes from the business investors, pays bills for both households, returns gifts for cash when he needs quick money. It's like juggling. If he drops one ball, everything crashes. Then let's make him drop all the balls at once, I said. But we needed more than evidence of financial fraud. We needed to protect ourselves legally. We needed someone who could navigate this nightmare and come out winning. That's when Melissa found Sarah Chen. She's a shark, Melissa said, showing me the attorney's website. Look at her track record. She specializes in fraud cases, especially those involving bigamy and financial abuse. Her tagline is literally, I fight for victims, not villains. We made an appointment for the next day, telling Daniel we both had doctor's appointments. We met at Sarah Chen's office, a sleek high-rise downtown that made our situation feel suddenly very real. Sarah was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. She listened to our story without interrupting, taking notes, her expression never changing. When we finished, she sat back in her chair and looked at us both. This is one of the most egregious cases of fraud and bigamy I've seen in 15 years of practice, she said. But here's the good news. He's sloppy. Most bigamists are careful to keep their lives completely separate. Daniel's been mixing finances, using real names, leaving paper trails everywhere. He got comfortable, arrogant. Can we get our money back? I asked. Better than that, Sarah said with a smile that made me understand why Melissa called her a shark. We can make him wish he'd never been born. She opened her laptop and started typing. Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to secure every asset before he knows we're coming. Patricia, that rental house you live in. Whose name is on the lease? Both of ours, I said. Good. You stay there. You have legal right to that residence. Melissa, the house at 2247 Maple Grove Lane. Whose names are on the deed? Both of ours, Melissa said quietly. We bought it together. Even better. Now, Patricia, I need you to do something that's going to be difficult. You need to open new bank accounts in only your name. Transfer whatever you can from your joint account into that new account. Not all of it. We don't want to tip him off, but enough to ensure you're not left destitute. Isn't that illegal? I asked. It's your money, Sarah said firmly. You earned it. You're protecting yourself. There's nothing illegal about that. Melissa, I need you to document every single asset in your home. Photos, receipts, everything. We're going to need a complete accounting. Over the next 3 days, we worked like women possessed. I opened a new account at a different bank and quietly transferred $8,000, just enough to survive for a few months if everything went wrong. Melissa photographed every room in her house, every piece of furniture, every appliance, every toy. She found receipts going back years, proof of every purchase Daniel had made with what we now knew was stolen money. And I made a discovery that changed everything. I was going through Daniel's home office. He'd left his laptop open while he showered, and I found an email from one of the business investors, a man named Robert Brennan. Daniel, this is the 3rd time I've asked for an update on my investment. It's been 2 years and you've stopped returning my calls. I put $180,000 into your company based on your promises, and I've seen nothing but excuses. If I don't hear from you by Friday with concrete information, I'm contacting my attorney. The date on the email was 6 months ago. I searched for Robert Brennan's name in the email history and found more, much more, angry messages demanding updates, threats of legal action, and finally silence. I found 2 others just like him. Thomas Rodriguez, $95,000. Marcus Webb, $125,000. Men who'd trusted Daniel. Men who'd been robbed. We need to contact them. I told Sarah and Melissa at our next meeting. They deserve to know what happened to their money, and their testimony will help our case. Sarah nodded slowly. If we can prove he defrauded multiple investors, this becomes federal. Wire fraud. Tax evasion. He won't just lose the civil case. He'll go to prison. Melissa had been quiet through most of the meeting, but now she spoke up, her voice cold and hard. Good. I want him to go to prison. I want him to lose everything. What about your children? Sarah asked gently. They'll know their father is a criminal. They'll know their father is a liar, Melissa said. Better they learn that now than grow up thinking this is how men are supposed to treat women. Better they see him face consequences than watch him get away with it. I reached over and squeezed her hand. 3 weeks ago, this woman had been a stranger, my enemy even, the woman living the life that should have been mine. But now she was the only person in the world who truly understood what I was going through. There's one more thing, Sarah said, looking between us. We need to confront him together. Both of you, in a controlled environment where he can't run or manipulate or lie his way out. And we need witnesses. What kind of witnesses? I asked. Sarah smiled that shark smile again. The kind that will make sure he knows his whole world is burning down. How do you ladies feel about hosting a dinner party? Melissa and I looked at each other, and for the first time in weeks, I saw something other than pain in her eyes. I saw rage. Beautiful, righteous rage. When? Melissa asked. 2 weeks, Sarah said. That gives us time to prepare everything, to contact the investors, to get all our ducks in a row, and to make sure when Daniel Anderson's world ends, it ends spectacularly. I left that meeting feeling something I hadn't felt in 22 years. Powerful. We spent the next 2 weeks preparing for the dinner. Sarah contacted the 3 investors, Robert, Thomas, and Marcus. All 3 agreed to come, their anger at Daniel's betrayal making them eager to see justice served. Sarah also contacted federal investigators, laying out the case for wire fraud and embezzlement. Melissa and I planned every detail. She would host it at the big house, Daniel's House of Lies. She told him she wanted to have a dinner party for some of his business associates, a networking opportunity. He loved the idea, preening at the thought of playing successful businessman for an evening. He had no idea he was walking into an ambush. I would arrive separately. Just another guest. In Daniel's mind, his two lives were still perfectly separate. He had no idea his two wives had become a team. The night before the dinner, Melissa called me, her voice small and scared. What if this doesn't work? What if he talks his way out of it somehow? He's so good at lying, Patricia. What if we're not strong enough? Then we hold each other up, I said. That's what we do. We're not alone anymore, Melissa. Neither of us is alone. Promise me something, she said. Promise me that when this is over, when he's gone, promise we'll still be friends. I know that sounds crazy, but you're the only person who understands. You're the only one who knows what this feels like. My eyes filled with tears. I promise. You're stuck with me now. She laughed, a sound that was half sob. Good, because my kids are going to need an aunt. Someone strong who can show them what real strength looks like. The next evening, as I drove toward 2047 Maple Grove Lane, wearing my nicest dress, the only nice thing I owned, I thought about those children, James and Sophie, innocent lives about to have their world shattered. But they'd survive. They'd have a mother who showed them that women don't have to accept betrayal, that justice matters, that standing up for yourself, even when it's hard, is always the right choice. And they'd have me, Aunt Patricia, the other woman who loved their mother like a sister. I parked down the street and checked my phone. A text from Sarah. Everything's ready. See you inside. Let's end this. A text from Melissa. I'm terrified, but I'm ready. Thank you for not letting me face this alone. I took a deep breath, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, and stepped out of my beat-up Honda. Daniel Anderson had no idea that his perfect life was about to explode, but he was about to find out. The house looked perfect. Of course it did. Melissa had always been good at creating the illusion of perfection, just like Daniel had taught her. Soft lighting glowed through the windows. Fresh flowers adorned the entryway. Everything looked exactly like what it was supposed to be. A successful businessman's home, ready to host an evening of networking and celebration. But I knew the truth. Behind that perfect facade, two women had spent weeks building a trap that would snap shut with devastating precision. I walked up the driveway at exactly 7 p.m., my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Through the front window, I could see Daniel laughing, playing with Sophie, completely at ease in his kingdom of lies. He had no idea that in less than an hour, that kingdom would burn to the ground. The doorbell rang. I watched Melissa move through the house to answer it, her movements calm and graceful. When she opened the door, our eyes met for just a second. I saw my own fear reflected back at me, but I also saw strength, Patricia. Melissa said warmly, as if we were old friends. I'm so glad you could make it. Please, come in. Daniel appeared in the hallway, Sophie on his hip, and I watched his face, watched the exact moment confusion flickered across his features. He knew my name. Of course he knew my name. But his brain was trying to process why his wife was greeting someone named Patricia, why that name sounded familiar. Then he saw me, really saw me. I watched the color drain from his face, watched his smile freeze and crack, watched 22 years of lies catch up to him in a single terrible moment. Patricia? His voice came out strangled. What are you doing here? Daniel invited me, I said calmly, stepping into the house, into his other life, into the beautiful home built with my mother's inheritance. Or rather, he invited several of his business associates. I believe I qualify. Melissa smoothly took Sophie from Daniel's arms. Sweetheart, why don't you go upstairs and watch a movie with James? The grown-ups are going to have a boring dinner party. But Daddy promised to read to us, Sophie protested. I'll read to you later, Princess, Daniel said, his voice mechanical. His eyes never left me. Go on upstairs now. Once the children were gone, the three of us stood in that pristine entryway. Husband, wife, other wife. The triangle that should never have existed. Melissa, Daniel said carefully, already trying to calculate, to manipulate, to lie his way out. I can explain. This isn't what it looks like. Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like, Melissa said, her voice like ice. But let's save the explanations for when all our guests arrive. Speaking of which, she checked her watch. They should be here any moment. What guests? Daniel's voice rose. What the hell is going on? The doorbell rang again. That would be Robert Brennan, I said. You remember Robert, don't you, Daniel? The man who invested $180,000 in your consulting business 2 years ago? Daniel's face went from white to gray. No. Melissa, listen to me. But Melissa was already opening the door. Robert Brennan stood there, a tall man in his 60s with kind eyes that had gone hard with betrayal. He looked at Daniel and I saw pure rage flash across his face. Hello, Daniel, Robert said quietly. Been trying to reach you for months. Funny how you're suddenly available when your wife sends the invitation. Robert, this isn't a good time. We can meet next week and... Oh, I think this is a perfect time, Robert said, stepping inside. Especially since I brought friends. 2 more men appeared behind him. Thomas Rodriguez and Marcus Webb. The other investors. The other victims. Daniel backed up, shaking his head. What is this? What the hell is this? This, said a new voice from the doorway, is what we call accountability. Sroya Chen stepped into the house, dressed in a power suit that screamed authority, carrying a briefcase that I knew contained evidence of every crime Daniel had committed. Behind her came 2 more people, a man and woman in dark suits with badges clipped to their belts. Federal agents. Mr. Anderson, Sarah said calmly. I'm Sarah Chen, attorney for both Patricia Anderson and Melissa Anderson. These are Special Agents Morrison and Chen from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. I think we all need to have a conversation. Daniel looked around the room wildly, like a trapped animal searching for escape. His eyes landed on Melissa. Melissa, please. Think about the children. Think about our family. I am thinking about our family, Melissa said, and her voice broke just slightly. I'm thinking about how you built it on lies, how you funded it with stolen money, how you made me an accessory to fraud without even telling me. And I'm thinking, I said, stepping forward, about my mother, about how she worked 40 years as a seamstress, saving every penny, so that I'd be secure. And you took that money, you took her life's work, and you used it to build this. I gestured around the beautiful house. You used it to play house with another woman while I worked myself into a hospital bed. Everyone, please, Sarah said, gesturing toward the dining room. Let's sit down and discuss this like civilized people. Mr. Anderson, you're not under arrest, yet. But I strongly suggest you cooperate. We moved into the dining room. Melissa's beautiful dining room with the chandelier and the expensive table. The table where Daniel had eaten dinner with his other family every night, while I sat alone in our rental house, eating leftover diner food. Daniel sat at the head of the table, his position of power now feeling like the defendant's chair. Melissa and I sat on either side of him. The 3 investors sat across from us. Sarah and the federal agent stood. Let's start with the basics, Sarah said, opening her briefcase. Mr. Anderson, you are legally married to Patricia Ellen Anderson. You were married on September 14th, 2003, in a ceremony in Ohio. This marriage was never dissolved. Is that correct? Daniel's jaw clenched. Yes. And on July 23rd, 2019, you entered into a second marriage with Melissa Jean Anderson in a ceremony in Miami, Florida. Is that correct? Yes. That's bigamy, Mr. Anderson, a federal crime. But we're just getting started. Sarah pulled out documents, spreading them across the table like cards in a deadly game. In 2022, Patricia's mother passed away, leaving her $180,000. You convinced Patricia to give you this money for business investment. Where did that money go? Daniel said nothing. I'll tell you where it went, Sarah continued. It went into a joint account with Melissa's name on it. An account used to pay the mortgage on this house, to pay for the Lexus and BMW in your garage, to pay for your children's private school education, Patricia's inheritance, her mother's life savings, funded your second wife's lifestyle. Melissa's hand went to her mouth. We'd known this, but hearing it laid out so starkly made it real in a new way. Robert Brennan leaned forward. And my money, Daniel? Where did my $180,000 go? Sarah pulled out more documents. Mr. Brennan invested in what Mr. Anderson claimed was a consulting business. The money was supposed to be used for business development, hiring staff and operational costs. Instead, the money was deposited into various personal accounts and used to fund Mr. Anderson's 2 households. You son of a bitch, Robert said quietly. I trusted you. We played golf together. You came to my daughter's wedding. Thomas Rodriguez spoke up, his accent thick with emotion. My money was supposed to be for my retirement. My wife. She has cancer. We needed that money for her treatment. You looked me in the eye and told me it was safe. Daniel's head dropped into his hands. I was going to pay you back. All of you. I just needed more time. Time. Marcus Webb's voice cracked. I gave you 125 3 years ago. You've had time. You've had nothing but time, while you lived in luxury. And I lost my house. Special Agent Morrison finally spoke, her voice professional and cold. Mr. Anderson, based on the evidence Ms. Chen has provided, we have grounds to charge you with wire fraud, tax evasion, bigamy, and embezzlement. The combined financial crimes total over $700,000. That's federal prison time. Mr. Anderson, significant prison time. The room went silent. Daniel looked up, and for the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. Not the fear of being caught, the fear of actual consequences. But, Sarah said, and everyone's attention turned to her, my clients are willing to offer you an opportunity. What kind of opportunity? Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. Full financial restitution, Sarah said. Every penny you stole, embezzled, or fraudulently obtained gets returned. The house gets sold, the cars get sold, every asset gets liquidated. Patricia receives her mother's inheritance back in full. The 3 investors receive their investments back with interest. Melissa receives her fair share of the marital assets from her marriage to you. I don't have that kind of money, Daniel said. Then you'll work for the rest of your life paying it back, Sarah said sharply. You'll get a job, a real job, and every penny beyond basic survival goes to repaying your debts. Your wages will be garnished. Your tax returns will be intercepted. You will spend the next 20 years making this right. And if I don't agree? Sarah smiled coldly. Then Agent Morrison arrests you right now. You go to trial. You get convicted. Because trust me, with this much evidence, conviction is certain. You spend the next 15 to 20 years in federal prison. You lose any chance of seeing your children grow up. You lose everything anyway, but you lose it from behind bars. Daniel looked around the room at all the faces staring back at him. The wives he'd betrayed. The men he'd stolen from. The agents ready to arrest him. The lawyer who'd built an airtight case against him. I need time to think, he said. You have 60 seconds, Sarah said, checking her watch. That's not enough time to... 50 seconds. This is insane. You can't expect me to... 40 seconds. Melissa spoke up, her voice steady now. Daniel, look at me. He turned to her, and I saw tears streaming down his face. You destroyed our family, Melissa said. You destroyed Patricia's life. You stole from good people who trusted you. You don't get time to think. You don't get to negotiate. You take this deal or you go to prison. Those are your only choices." 30 seconds, Sarah said. "The children," Daniel choked out. "What about James and Sophie? What about them?" I said, and my voice came out harder than I expected. "You should have thought about them before you committed felony after felony. You should have thought about them before you built their entire lives on stolen money." 20 seconds. "They'll hate me," Daniel whispered. "They'll hate you more if you go to prison," Melissa said. "At least this way, you can work to make things right. You can show them that when you do wrong, you take responsibility. You can be a father, even if you have to do it while working 3 jobs to pay back your debts." 10 seconds, Sarah said. Daniel looked at me one last time. "Patricia, I never meant—" "Save it," I said. "I don't want your apologies. I want my mother's money back. I want these men to get their investments back. I want Melissa and her children to have security. That's all I want from you." 5 seconds, 4, 3, "Okay," Daniel shouted. "Okay, I'll do it. I'll sign whatever you want, just make this stop." Sarah pulled documents from her briefcase. "Sign here, and here, and here. You're agreeing to full financial restitution, wage garnishment, asset liquidation, and a payment plan that will last until every penny is repaid with interest." Daniel's hand shook as he signed page after page. His kingdom was falling, his empire crumbling, and all he could do was watch it burn. "One more thing," Sarah said, pulling out a final document. "You're signing over full custody of James and Sophie to Melissa. You'll have supervised visitation rights, but only if you remain current on your restitution payments." "You can't take my children," Daniel said, looking desperately at Melissa. "You took yourself from your children the moment you chose to commit fraud to fund their lifestyle," Melissa said coldly. "Sign the paper, Daniel." He signed. When the last signature was placed, Sarah gathered the documents and handed them to Agent Morrison. "We'll be monitoring compliance closely, Mr. Anderson. If you miss a single payment, if you try to hide assets, if you do anything other than full cooperation, the deal is void, and you go straight to prison. Do you understand?" "Yes," Daniel whispered. "Good. You have 30 days to vacate this property. It will be sold, and the proceeds will go toward restitution. You'll be contacted about your payment schedule. Now get out." Daniel stood slowly, looking around the room one last time. His eyes landed on me, and I saw him start to speak. But I turned away. I had nothing left to say to him. He walked out of his beautiful house, past his luxury cars, away from his perfect life. The door closed behind him, and I heard his car start, heard him drive away. And then, in the silence that followed, Melissa started crying, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. I moved around the table and put my arms around her, and she collapsed against me. "It's over," she gasped. "It's really over." "It's over," I confirmed, holding her tight. "You're safe now. Your children are safe now." Robert Brennan stood up, clearing his throat. "Ms. Chen, how long before we see our money?" "The house should sell within 60 days. You'll receive your investments back with interest shortly after. I'll keep you updated on every step." The 3 investors nodded, looking drained but satisfied. They filed out quietly, leaving just Melissa, me, Sarah, and the federal agents. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you both rebuild." Sarah said, "The house sells, assets are liquidated, and you'll both receive what you're owed. Patricia, you'll get your mother's inheritance back. Melissa, you'll get your share of the marital assets. It won't be everything you lost. There's no way to repay lost time or broken trust, but it's justice." After Sarah and the agents left, Melissa and I sat in her living room. Soon to be sold, soon to be gone. Just 2 women who'd been strangers a month ago, now bonded by shared trauma and shared victory. "What will you do?" I asked her. "Where will you go?" "I don't know," she said. Maybe back to my hometown. My parents are there. The kids could use their grandparents right now. And I need to figure out who I am without him. I've been Daniel's wife for so long. I forgot how to be Melissa. You'll figure it out, I said. You're stronger than you think. So are you. She took my hand. Patricia, I meant what I said before. I want us to stay friends. I want James and Sophie to know you. I want that too, I said, squeezing her hand. We're family now. The family we chose, not the one forced on us by Daniel's lies. We sat there until late into the night. 2 wives who'd defeated their husband. 2 women who'd found strength in each other. 2 survivors planning their futures in the ruins of the past. And when I finally drove home to my little rental house, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. 6 months later, I stood in front of a mirror in my new apartment and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. She looked alive. Her eyes were clear. Her shoulders were straight. She was wearing clothes she'd chosen because she liked them, not because they were on clearance. She looked like someone who knew her worth. She looked like me, the real me, the one who'd been buried under 22 years of exhaustion and self-sacrifice. The apartment wasn't much, just a 1-bedroom on the 3rd floor of an older building. But it was mine, paid for with my mother's inheritance, finally returned to me after the house sold, and assets were liquidated. Every piece of furniture, every dish, every towel, I'd chosen them myself, built a life that belonged only to me. I'd quit both jobs, walked out of that diner and that bookkeeping office, and never looked back. With my mother's money safely in my account, I'd enrolled in online classes to finish the degree I'd abandoned when I married Daniel. Business administration. I was 56 years old and finally becoming who I was meant to be. My phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. We're here. Sophie's so excited she might explode. I smiled and grabbed my purse. Today was special. Today, Melissa was bringing the kids to visit, and we were all going to the Children's Museum. Our monthly tradition, Aunt Patricia Day. When I opened my apartment door, Sophie launched herself at me with a squeal. Aunt Patricia, I learned to do a cartwheel. Want to see? Not in the hallway, baby. Melissa laughed, catching up with her daughter. James followed more slowly, but he gave me a shy smile and a hug. These kids, they'd stolen my heart. They called me Aunt Patricia. They drew me pictures and told me their secrets and asked when I was coming to visit. They'd lost their father. Daniel was working 3 jobs now. Barely had time for supervised visits. But they'd gained something else, an extended family. Women who loved them and showed them what real strength looked like. You look good, Melissa said, studying my face. Really good. So do you, I said, and meant it. Melissa had moved back to her hometown like she'd planned, got a small house near her parents, started working part-time at a nonprofit. She was thinner than before, and there were shadows under her eyes sometimes. Healing wasn't linear, but there was peace in her face now. We spent the afternoon at the museum, watching James and Sophie run from exhibit to exhibit, their laughter echoing through the halls. Normal kids doing normal things, slowly healing from the trauma of their father's crimes. Later, after we'd exhausted the museum and bribed the kids with ice cream, Melissa and I sat on a bench in the park while James and Sophie played on the swings. I got a letter from Daniel, Melissa said quietly. My stomach tightened. What did it say? The usual. He's sorry. He never meant to hurt anyone. He was weak and made mistakes. He wants to see the kids more. She watched her children play, her expression unreadable. He included a check. His first restitution payment to me. $847. That's what 20 years of marriage is worth, apparently. $847 a month until the debt is paid. Are you going to let him see the kids more? She was quiet for a long moment. The therapist says it's important for them to have a relationship with their father, even though he's what he is. She says supervised visits are good, that James especially needs to see that his father is taking responsibility, working to make things right." She looked at me. "What do you think?" "I think you're an amazing mother who will make the right choice for your children," I said, "and I think Daniel doesn't deserve the grace you're showing him." "Maybe not," she said, "but they deserve a father who's trying to be better, even if he failed at everything else. I won't let him hurt them again, but I won't take him from them completely either." "You're a better person than me," I said. "No, I'm not." She took my hand. "I'm just a person trying to do the best I can with an impossible situation. Same as you." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the children play. Then Melissa said, "I met someone." I turned to her, surprised. "What?" She blushed. "It's nothing serious, just a guy at work. He asked me to coffee." I said yes. "We've been on 3 dates." She looked at me nervously. "Is that wrong? Is it too soon?" "Melissa, it's been 6 months. And you were living a lie even when you thought you were married. You don't owe Daniel anything, least of all celibacy." "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Terrified to trust someone again. Terrified that I'll miss the red flags. Terrified that I'm broken somehow, that I'll never be able to have a normal relationship." I squeezed her hand. "You're not broken. You're healing, and you'll know this time. You'll see the signs because you know what to look for now. You're not that naive woman anymore." "Neither are you," she said, smiling slightly. "Have you thought about dating?" I laughed. "God, no. I'm still figuring out who I am without Daniel. I'm not ready to add another person to that equation. But someday? Maybe someday." I watched a father push his daughter on the swing and felt nothing. No pain. No longing. Just observation. Right now I'm dating myself, learning what I like, what I want, who I am when I'm not performing for someone else's approval. "And who are you?" Melissa asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'm someone who's stronger than she knew. Someone who doesn't need rescuing because she can rescue herself. Someone who won't accept scraps when she deserves a feast. I looked at my friend. I'm someone who believes women should support each other, instead of competing. Someone who knows that the worst betrayal can lead to the most unexpected friendship. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so glad we found each other. I know the circumstances were horrible, but you're one of the best things that came out of all this." "Same," I said, my own voice thick. "You gave me something I didn't know I needed. A friend who understands. A sister." We hugged there on that bench. 2 women bound by betrayal but defined by survival. That night, after Melissa and the kids left, I sat in my apartment with a cup of tea and thought about everything that had happened. About the woman I'd been. So tired, so small, so convinced that suffering was the same as love. I thought about my mother, about how she'd worked 40 years to give me security, and how I'd handed that security to a man who threw it away. But in a strange way, her inheritance had saved me, not just financially, though that mattered, but it had been the thread I'd followed to unravel Daniel's lies. Without tracking that money, I might never have discovered the truth. "Thank you, Mama," I whispered to the empty room. "You saved me even after you were gone." My laptop sat on the coffee table, open to my online coursework. I had an essay due tomorrow about ethical business practices. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd lived through the most unethical business practice imaginable, but I was using that experience, turning pain into knowledge, transforming trauma into purpose. After I graduated, I wanted to work with women in financial crisis, women who'd been taken advantage of, who'd trusted the wrong people, who needed someone to help them rebuild. I wanted to be for them what Sarah Chen had been for me, a fighter, a protector, an advocate. I pulled up my essay and started typing, the words flowing easily. I wrote about fraud, about the destruction it causes, about how financial abuse is invisible but devastating, about how women especially are taught to trust, to defer, to believe that managing money isn't feminine or appropriate. And I wrote about justice, About how it's not just punishment, it's restitution. It's victims being made whole again. It's consequences that lead to change. 3 hours later, I submitted the essay and closed my laptop, satisfied. Then I did something I'd started doing every night before bed. I wrote in my journal, not about Daniel, not about the betrayal or the pain, but about me, about who I was becoming. Today's entry. Spent the day with Melissa and the kids. Sophie learned to cartwheel. James told me about his favorite book. Melissa is dating someone. I'm happy for her. She deserves love. Real love. Not the counterfeit version Daniel offered. I'm learning that being alone isn't the same as being lonely. I'm learning that I like myself. That's new. That's good. Tomorrow I start the next module in my class. Tomorrow I keep building. Tomorrow I keep becoming. I set down my pen and looked around my small apartment. 6 months ago, I'd been living in a rental house with a man who'd stolen everything from me. I'd been exhausted, broken, convinced I deserved nothing better. Now I was here. Free, whole, strong. Was I completely healed? No. Some nights I still woke up angry, thinking about all the years I'd lost. Some days I looked at happy couples and felt a pang of grief for the marriage I'd thought I had. Some moments I wondered if I'd ever be able to fully trust again. But I was better. Every day, a little bit better. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Robert Brennan, one of the investors. Patricia, wanted to update you. I received my final restitution payment today. The full amount plus interest has been repaid. I wanted to thank you and Melissa for your courage. If you two hadn't come forward, Daniel would still be out there destroying lives. You saved others from becoming his victims, your heroes. I stared at that text for a long time. Heroes. I'd never thought of it that way. I'd just been trying to survive, to get justice, to make things right. But maybe that's what heroism is. Not grand gestures or dramatic moments. Just ordinary people deciding they deserve better. Deciding to stand up. Deciding to fight back, I replied. Thank you, Robert. That means more than you know. I'm glad you got your money back. I'm glad we all got a piece of justice. Another text. This one from Sarah Chen. Saw that Brennan got his final payment. That means the restitution is almost complete. You and Melissa should be getting your final distributions within the month. Thought you'd want to know? Daniel tried to appeal the custody arrangement. Judge denied it. Said until he proves he can be financially stable without committing fraud, supervised visits remain in place. Justice prevails. Justice prevails. Yes. Yes, it does. I put my phone down and walked to the window, looking out over the city lights. Somewhere out there, Daniel was working his third job, trying to pay back the debts he'd created, trying to rebuild some relationship with his children, living with the consequences of his choices. I didn't hate him anymore. Hate required too much energy, too much space in my heart. I simply didn't care. He was a chapter in my life that had ended, a cautionary tale, a lesson learned. But I was still writing my story. And the best chapters? They were still ahead of me. A year ago, if someone had told me I'd be here, free, strong, happy, I wouldn't have believed them. A year ago, I thought my life was over, that at 56 there was no starting again, that I'd missed my chance at happiness. But I'd learned something important. It's never too late to become who you're meant to be. It's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to start again. You just have to be brave enough to take the first step. I turned away from the window and looked at my reflection one more time. You did good, Patricia, I told her. You survived. You fought back. You won. And the woman in the mirror? She smiled back at me, because she knew something now. Something Daniel's betrayal had accidentally taught her. She knew her worth, and she knew that no one would ever make her forget it again. Leaning back in my chair, a satisfied smile on my face. Thank you for walking this difficult road with me to the very end. If this story resonated with you, you can support our community by sending a super thanks. It helps me continue to bring these important stories to light. On the screen now are 2 more stories that I know will touch your soul. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong, standing up slowly, pulling my shawl tight around my shoulders. Remember, child, betrayal can break you, or it can remake you into something stronger than you ever imagined. The choice is always yours. Until we meet again, stay strong.